Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today I thought I'd actually go over Hellcat and how to use them, some questions that I've been getting a lot in the comments of my videos, and kind of give you some understanding of the things you need to do to make him work in all these comps. I've done a lot of videos on him now, right? I've done videos talking about how you can use him in a pretty simple team, right? Where he goes on a 4-3 ratio, he blocks damage and uses the stun, right? I've done this now with Ninja. I've done this using only rare champions. I've done this using OP champions. So you can see the full spectrum of this being a 1-key type of team, being a 2 or almost a 2-key type of team with really bad champions on it and bad gear. I've shown this how you can do this with Ninja in the team as well. I've also shown, you know, a couple different variations where you have him with an additional 4-3 champion or a couple of additional 4-3 champions, or even in a 2-1 ratio comp. There's so many different variations on this champion, and part of the reason is his kit is almost identical to another unkillable champion we have in Roshkard the Tower. Now, when we're talking about building an unkillable team, there's only one skill we even need to worry about. That's going to be that block damage ability of Hellcat. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. So how do you use that in existing comps? Well, if those comps already have a champion with an unkillable or block damage ability on a 4-turn cooldown, then you can substitute Hellcat in for them. It's really that simple. Now, can you substitute Hellcat for Maneater? No. Why? Because Maneater has a 5-turn cooldown. The cooldowns aren't the same, then the skill won't be used at the same time. That's what the whole point of speed tuning is, right? So you got to kind of keep that part in mind. But can you use him for Sir Nicholas? Absolutely. Can you use him for Roshkard the Tower? Absolutely. Can you use him for Warcaster? Of course. Even though Warcaster only has a 1-turn duration, well, Hellcat has 2-turn duration. That's even better, right? So you can use him for all those champions. Can you use him for Demitha? No. Same thing as with Maneater. Demitha has a 3-turn cooldown, and Hellcat has a 4-turn cooldown. So the two things don't mesh because the cooldowns are different. And then I always get asked, well, do I have to book Hellcat? And the answer is yeah. Remember that 4-turn cooldown part? That's the skill that has to be booked, right? You need that A3 skill booked fully so that you have Hellcat working on a 4-turn cooldown. Absolutely vital to it. Now, of course, you might be asking, what about the A2 ability? I know, Deadwood, you keep saying if you don't book that fully, that's even better. And it is better, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work if it's fully booked. In fact, every single tune I've shown so far on my channel, and I'm talking almost half a dozen at this point, every single one of them, Hellcat is fully booked. That A2 ability that gives you that shield and I know when you book it fully, it reduces to a 3-turn cooldown. Now, there's a reason why I say you don't want to fully book it. You want the extra bonuses from the shields and the damage. You just don't want that extra cooldown. And the reason why is simple. In this game, when you have a skill on a 4-turn cooldown and you have another skill on a 3-turn cooldown, well, if you're trying to prioritize that skill on the 4-turn cooldown, like Hellcat's A3 ability, the block damage skill, what's going to happen is the A2 ability on the 3-turn cooldown will always go right after it. It just has to do with numbers. It's nothing too complicated. You use the A3 and then you use the A2. Well, the A2 is going to be available in 1, 2, 3 turns. Well, that A3 ability is also available in 4 turns. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4. They're both available at the same time is the point. But that A3 ability on that 4-turn cooldown is prioritized, which means that the A2 that you wanted to use is going to have to go on that turn after it, which means it's always going to follow the higher cooldown skill. That's just the way that it works. There's really nothing else that can be done about it. Now, you can, of course, prioritize the A2, but if you want to be unkillable, there's not really a lot of point to that. So you're going to want to prioritize the A3, and then you'll just use the A2 after. Now, the reason why I say you don't need to fully book it is because if it's already going to be on a 4-turn cooldown, by not booking that, then all of a sudden we can actually time when it goes if it's on a 4-turn cooldown and not a 3-turn. Because the thing is, I can't change when it goes when it's on a 3-turn cooldown following the 4-turn cooldown A3 ability. But if I want that A2 to maybe skip a turn, maybe he puts that shield up right before the stun, like maybe right after the block damage skill falls off of himself and he gives himself an increased defense buff, you could do that, but it would need to be unbooked, that A3. It needs to just not have the cooldown part of it, stay on a 4-turn cooldown. That's why I say if you can do the A2 without it being fully booked, that would be ideal. But it's not crucial, right? It still works even when booked. So I just hopefully that clears that part up for you a little bit. And I always have people asking as well, hey, why don't you build a defensive team? Just focus on the shields. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. First off, I think that being able to survive 50 turns is such a coup in this game. Now, obviously, if you really wanted to build a defense team focused on a shield, that is definitely possible. I mean, we've been able to do that with Valkyrie in the past, and it's very similar. But I think if I had the choice, I'd still choose Valkyrie because I'm getting something extremely rare in this game, counterattack. And I think that's going to be more valuable than what Hellcat would bring. But that said, absolutely, you could do that if that's something you wanted to do. I don't recommend it. The requirements for building a traditional team to survive 50 turns or longer is definitely going to be higher than the gear requirements required of an unkillable team. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't built that yet. I know at some point I will, because so many of you are asking and you want to see it. I will definitely get one built at some point here, but it's not a rush for me because I don't see that as an optimal way to use this champion. And it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for me to showcase and encourage you guys to build a champion in a way that's not optimal. I just don't feel really great about that. I will do it at some point, right? Because I know so many of you want to see that. Then obviously I want to give you guys what you want to see, but it's definitely not what I would consider the best way to use this champion. If you have an unkillable ability, it's amazing. Use it. So there's another question that I get, probably actually more than any of the others when it comes to talking about these Hellcat teams. I'm using X champion. You don't have X champion. Who can you use instead? When it comes to this, guys, you can always bring in whatever DPS you want to bring in. I'm looking to bring in 3 particular things when it comes to unkillable teams for clan boss, and it never changes. I'm looking to bring in decreased defense, I'm looking to bring in weaken, and I'm looking to bring in poisons. I guess you could say I'm also looking to bring in raw damage, but that's it. So when you're talking about these DPS slots, these champions that are going to do the damage for you, you can really choose anybody you want. There's only really one restriction, or 2 restrictions, I'd say. You can't bring in champions that are going to give you an extra turn, at least not without accounting for it in the calculator. And most of these tunes don't allow for that kind of flexibility, because if you take that extra turn, you're going to burn that unkillable ability. So you really have to time that out if that's something you're going to do. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm sure it is, but that's something you have to take into account. The only other thing that you got to be really careful of is anybody that increases turn meter or brings added speed. So if someone has an increased speed buff, or someone has a turn meter boost, I mean, these are examples of champions like Lydia with the speed buff, or Tukhanarok with the speed buff, or Ninja with turn meter boost on his A1 skill. If you're going to use those champions, you either have to turn off that skill and ability, or you have to account for it in the calculator. And if I haven't done that specifically, you can assume that those are not champions you want to use in this particular team, okay? Obviously, there's a variety of different speed tunes when it comes to Hellcat, because he's so simple to tune. So I'm not saying any of this is impossible to do. I've had a lot of people ask me, can I use Ninja with ally attack or with counterattack? I don't want to say no. I just haven't found those speeds yet. I haven't bothered to look for them at this point, but I'm sure there are ways to do that. I'm almost 100% positive that there are ways to do that, but there's a lot of variations to this, right? I've already seen other variations of Ninja tunes at slightly different speeds that can work. And so I encourage you guys, go ahead, play around in the calculator, try some different things, see if you can't find something that maybe I didn't. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. It doesn't mean that those, different variations are always going to be included on the website, because I try to curate that list for the general player, right? I want to try to make them affinity friendly whenever possible. I like to make them available for both Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare whenever possible, at the very least, if not brutal as well. So a lot of times I won't use variations on it because they're difficulty specific, they're affinity specific, or they're very or something kind of in between that just doesn't work for the average player. And so I won't always include all of those variations. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I try to keep it something that everybody can benefit from. And so that's kind of the general idea behind it. But it doesn't mean you can't still build that. It doesn't mean you can't still share that with people, or even with, you know, me. If you find something that's unique, I would encourage you, go to my Discord, share it there with my moderators, and they'll let me know if it's something that really should be on the website or not. I think that's a great way to go about this. Which brings me to another point. This latest tune I put out there, the Ninja Hellcat Unkillable team. I actually, when I recorded this video, I didn't realize how good this team could be. And if you set the right priorities and set the right, skill order and setup, you can actually run this on both Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare with Ninja's original AI, prioritizing the A2 ability, which is his big damage ability, over his A3. There's a couple caveats, and I have that all on the website. And this actually goes for any of the speed tunes you ever want to use that I show a video on. Go check the speed tune that I have linked in the video. Go check it on the website, because if there's any additional notes, any special things that I might have forgotten to put in the video, or maybe we discovered after I even recorded it, I'll have them in there, and that'll give you a little bit extra guidance on how to go about speed tuning this, so you don't go through the same mistakes I might have gone in the process of recording it. So definitely something I would recommend you guys do every single time, just to ensure that you are getting the team exactly how you want it and you're not messing things up. A lot of times there's subtle variations that might work for Ultra Nightmare, and this happens a lot, especially when I'm, showcasing somebody else's team. And so a lot of times, those special variations, they don't work for everything, but there is a version of it that does, and that's what I'll have on the website, and that's the one you're actually going to want to build, right? So definitely, take the speeds and stuff I use on the video, but also double check it on the website so you make sure that you're getting the optimal tune out of these champions. And the very last thing I want to talk to you about is when these tunes, they don't work for you, because I get this every video, right? Someone says, this doesn't work. I tried it. It doesn't work. I'm using the exact same speeds as you are, same masteries. It always comes down to three things. If your speed tune doesn't work for you, but it works in the calculator, there's always three things that are going wrong. One of these three, I should say, right? It's either that you have the speeds input wrong. Maybe you forgot a perception set, or you forgot a speed set, or you forgot to click the Lore of Steel tab to make sure that that mastery is accounted for. Something there is slightly off. Or you have the right speeds, but maybe the masteries are wrong and they're affecting turn meter. Masteries like Rapid Recovery or Arcane Celerity, maybe even Cycle of Magic, could be messing up your tune by changing the skill order that you're using abilities in. Or maybe you have a Cycle of Revenge, which gives you extra turn meter boost as well. Anything that affects turn meter or skill order can potentially be ruining your comp. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, if it's not one of those two things, chances are you're using a champion that's adding turn meter or speed to the build itself, or you're using skills at the wrong time. A perfect example of this is Ninja. I cannot tell you how many times someone said, hey, this team isn't working. I'm using the same stuff you are. And then they say, I'm using Ninja. And our rule in my Discord, the first rule of Ninja, is don't use Ninja. He ruins so many comps. If it's not specifically designed for him, it's going to be very difficult for him to work in that team, and generally impossible, because he has turn meter boost on his A1. I'll say this a million times, and I know I will still get these questions, but just understand, if you're having trouble speed tuning, chances are you have somebody like Ninja, you have bad masteries, or you have the speeds input wrong to begin with. And as always, you definitely want to check in the calculator. If something's going wrong, well, make sure that it's supposed to work, right? Look, that's what the calculator's there for. And then if all that seems okay to you, what you need to do is go through, watch the run, and then go along turn by turn with the calculator till it messes up, and spot that moment. Because once you spot that change in what's supposed to happen to what does happen, it'll give you a good indication of what's going wrong. Maybe you have a refresh gear on somebody that you're not supposed to, or there's a blood shield ring on someone that you're not supposed to, or a passive from Seeker or somebody went off at the wrong time. There's always a few different causes, and it's complicated. I myself struggle with this all the time, but you gotta go through it, and you gotta, take the time and be patient. Don't be afraid to walk away, leave it, let it sit for an hour, and then come back to it later. So anyway, hopefully this answers a lot of your questions, because I know there's been a ton of them, and I'm really excited about this. This is a wonderful champion, and I know you guys are excited to use them, so that's good. You should be asking questions. You should keep asking questions, but a lot of them are fairly obvious as far as how to answer it, right? And so hopefully this video is going to solve a lot of those questions that you guys have already and make it a little bit easier for you guys to go forward and build those teams. That's the point. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Do consider dropping a subscribe and a notification bell. I love doing these videos for you, but I can't do it without your support. And I know like over half of you guys don't actually subscribe. So if you take a moment, that would mean a great deal to me. I'd really appreciate it. But guys, thanks for stopping by. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.